Hello, AP Environmental Science students. In today's screencast, we're going to finish up with Chapter 4, which is Biodiversity and Evolution. All of today's notes are based off of Living in the Environment, the 16th edition by Miller and Spoolman. So Chapter 4, Section 6 talks about what roles species play in ecosystems. Each species plays a specific ecological role called its niche, or niche, and any given species may play one or more of 5 important roles, including native, non-native, indicator, keystone, or foundation roles in a particular ecosystem. Again, all of today's stuff we went over to prepare for our field trip a couple of weeks ago in our biodiversity overview. So if you want to use that as your notes and your flashcards for this chapter, that's totally fine with me. If you want to make the flashcards, go on ahead. So, each species plays a unique role in its ecosystem. A niche is the species' role in an ecosystem, and the role includes interactions, its biotic and abiotic needs, and habitat is where a species lives. So you can think of it like the habitat is its address, while its niche or niche is its occupation. So there's a couple different types of species that we're going to talk about here. First one is a general species. The general species cover broad niches because they can eat a variety of food and they have a wide range of tolerance for environmental conditions. Rats are a good example of this. Cockroaches are a good example of this. Specialist species are species that cover narrow niches and feed on only one food source or at least very few and can only tolerate a small range of environmental conditions. The orchid mantis that lives on a very specific species of orchid is an example. Koala is another example. Cockroaches, like I said, they are an example of a generalist species. They've been around for 350 million years because they are able to exist in a variety of locations and eat a bunch of stuff. Then we have native and invasive species. Native species are organisms that are typically live and flourish in a certain environment. Invasive species are organisms that are introduced either intentionally or accidentally to a new environment. Invasive kind of always just sounds like a bad word, like they're the bad guys, they're coming in and taking over, but sometimes they're good. Like I said, sometimes humans introduce them intentionally. So for example, if we have this like crazy booming deer population in a place, we might bring in some bobcats to keep their deer population in check. Generalist species are generally more successful invasive species because they usually face little predation, disease, can eat a variety of foods, can exist in a variety of conditions, and then it's possible they can now compete the native species, which can then devastate the natural ecosystem. So invasive species can be bad too. Indicator species. You guys should be awesome at indicator species now. But indicator species provide an early warning that damage to an ecosystem is occurring. They're typically really sensitive to change. So our macroinvertebrates are a good example. Amphibians are also a good example that warn about water pollution. Keystone species are species that play an extremely vital role in maintaining the integrity of an ecosystem. If a keystone species disappears, it's going to have a huge impact on the community because it may do a variety of things. So keystone species might be things like pollinators that help our plants reproduce, top consumers that keep lower populations in check, or eaters of breeding grounds, so again, keep populations in check. So pollinators like bees, predators like alligators and sea otters keep other populations like sea otters keep your sea anemones in check so they don't overtake the ocean floor. Lastly, foundation species play a major role in shaping the communities by creating and enhancing their habitats. So elephants are a really good example of foundation species because they push over, break, and uproot trees, which allow for forest openings and create grasslands and promote those grasses and other forage plants, so animals can actually survive that eat off the grasses.